everyone. I don't know if we'll be as eloquent and witty as you have, Andrew, but I think, as you say, it's a really good kind of context for some of the stuff we're about to talk about. So we're going to talk about AI moderation and interviewing, and kind of what that means for data quality, the quality we capture, the experience of the user kind of that's giving us the data, and what it means for the future. So I'm Maria. I am head of digital, as John says, at Ycatcher. That's our digital research platform. We're part of the STRAT7 group. And I've got nearly 20 years of research experience starting out in data processing, doing some of that kind of old school data processing, as you mentioned there, Andrew. I kind of moved into qual research and then into quant, and I now focus very much in digital research with a focus on AI. Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew, the CTO at STRAT7. I started my IT career with punch cards, so I kind of resonate with what Andrew's saying. I've got to declare myself up front. I'm 100% in Andrew's camp. What I've seen over the last couple of years in my time spending looking at these models, my language was much fruitier than startling, I can tell you now. What we're doing here is really interesting. It scratches the surface, I think, a little bit of the capabilities here. So, this whole thing came out of a response from a survey where somebody said, look, I just think it's a bit boring, it's a bit tedious. And they are, and they can be, and they're dry, and we get survey fatigue. And I think, we kind of sat down and thought, well, is there a different way to do this? Can we do something a bit better? So in that context, let's kind of take a step back, really. So surveying's been a background of market research for decades. It's the go-to thing. That's what we do. That's how we do it. But they can lack all kinds of richness, depth, and emotion. We miss nuances. We absolutely do, because you're answering a question. Because of AI and because of model capabilities, we thought, maybe there's a way to do that. Maybe we can use AI to moderate those surveys. Maybe we can get more out of the participants by using AI to ask the questions. So, as we, sorry, I'm not following the script, which is throwing Maria massively. Major apologies. We're getting the context now, it's fine. Yeah, as I said, and I told her I would as well, so also I lied. So, just before we move on, a quick show of hands. Who can conversational AI replace surveys? Is that a yes? At the moment it's binary, but let's get to the end. So a no? So I'm startled, actually. I thought it was going to be very different to that. Okay, well, let me pass on to Maria, who's going to explain. Oh no, I missed a slide out. Apologies. Let's move to the next slide. So, does AI moderation change what we learn and how people feel when they're sharing it? Let me pass on to Maria. She'll answer that question. And I'm just so skillful at this. Let me pass on to Maria. She'll answer that question and explain what we've been doing, and you can draw your own conclusions.
Thank you. I don't need a script. Thank you. So smooth. So we did an A/B test, and we wanted to put something to the test, as Andrew said, that we've been developing, which is a WhatsApp AI moderator. And we did that through our Ycatcher platform that has the WhatsApp integration. Now, this was the first real kind of use case for the AI moderator and for I'll name her in a second, I'll give the bigger reveal, but we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't know if we thought conversations would be better than surveys. But we wanted to just see what came out, and actually the findings were really interesting. As we went through, we found some really interesting stuff. And we've been quite honest in the feedback and in what we found, because we think that's important. Sorry, that noise is really throwing me. So, we did the study on the topic of snacking. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
See
So slick.
You can edit that out, right?
So sorry. So we did this on the topic of snacking because we wanted something generic, something that affects most people. So what we did, we split people into two groups. So on the left, we put people into route A. So that was the Maya group. So half of the people went into this and had a conversation with this AI moderator through WhatsApp. Now Maya is based on Claude 4. She's been trained on billions of data points, as you'd imagine. And she asked open, adaptive questions in a conversational style. The other half of the group, unfortunately, went to my colleague Alex, who is an old school researcher. He's got 32 years of experience in qual and quant. And he wrote structured quant questions, many 5-point scales, and he added some open ends as well, just for comparability, so we could get some of the richness as well to make it a bit fair. And they both were trying to find the same information. They wanted to know how people were snacking, what they were doing, what the occasions were. But they obviously went about it in the same way. And I should say they had the same brief as well. So before we go into the actual findings and what we actually saw, I'm just going to show you what an AI conversation looks like with Maya, just so you can get a bit of context. So the initial question, which was the same for everyone in the AI group, is very broad. It's just kind of asking how people are snacking, what do you reach for when you snack? Somebody responds and says, I find what's in the house when I'm kind of at home or if I'm in the pub. Maya then bases her question and her kind of follow-up response on what that person said. And that builds so on and so forth as the conversation goes on. And we can change the parameters around the number of questions. We can obviously give her a very clear brief of what we want her to ask, what we want to cover. And she can process text, obviously, images, video, and audio. And she takes that all into account, along with the brief, to ask all the questions as she needs to. So what do we find? Well, people love snacking, it seems. They really like reaching for the snacks, particularly crisps and biscuits, as you'd expect. They snack in the evenings. Sorry, I thought the slide didn't load. They snack in the evenings. They watch it in front of the TV. They do it in front of the TV. They do it as a treat. They have Walkers, Cadbury, and Doritos. It's nothing groundbreaking, nothing new, but we got some good context. And actually, we found the same information from both of the groups. So both groups were saying exactly the same thing. But what did really differ was how people expressed themselves and what they were telling us. So if we compare the first question, which is an open question for both of the routes, and that's important for comparability, we've obviously just seen Maya's initial question and response there. And that question was very broad. It was very open to interpretation. People can kind of take it how they want. As a result, we got a response which answered the question, but it's light, it's very superficial. Then, if we compare that to the human written question, you can see that's a lot more targeted in terms of what we want to find out. What are you snacking on? Where are you buying it from? Why? Name a few. And as a result, the response we get back is much more detailed. So you can see the person saying they're getting fruit from Sainsbury's or Waitrose. They get biscuits from when their granddaughter comes to stay. When they play bowls, they have crisps and have a drink. There's just a lot more information in there. So, when we looked at those results for the very first question, we saw actually the accuracy was far better in that human group, as was word count. So, people were giving us much more information. They were answering the question much, much better because they'd had a very clear guide of what we wanted to hear. So it tells us that no matter who's asking the questions, good prompts are really important. And we know that. We know that good questions are really important, so there's nothing new. But AI in particular needs very pointed, targeted questions. And a brief, I should say. But then we found, as the AI chat went on, responses became far more human. So people started to build trust, and then they started to be a bit more expressive in what they were saying. So people were showing us images, audio, emojis, and my absolute favourite is that quote from somebody in the bottom right there that says, "Thanks, bye," with a kiss as they close that conversation. So it shows people are seeing Maya as human, as conversational, as kind of natural. In particular, because they're using WhatsApp, it does feel very kind of normal for people to do that. So we were getting much richer responses, in particular from the younger group. And the results were great. People loved speaking to Maya. They really, really enjoyed it. 95% of that AI group said they enjoyed speaking to Maya, and 88% said they felt understood. We've got a lovely quote here from somebody who says, I loved speaking to her, it was interesting, it was interactive, it wasn't too long, but it was detailed. And many people said that Maya encouraged their reflection. So they liked that experience of really thinking about their response, not just giving a one-word answer, but thinking about snacking, why they liked biscuits so much. They felt it was casual, personalised to them and to their responses, and so it made it more reflective. And that was particularly the case with the younger group and the under 55s. So that's a real positive for data quality coming out of AI moderation. But it does mean that potentially, and we did see it in quite a lot of cases, Maya was maybe focusing too much on one thing. So if somebody said that they like biscuits, she would spend a lot of time talking about biscuits because apparently she loves biscuits. But it kind of raises a good point, and it does bring us to some important watch-outs, which is that AI could sometimes ask leading or potentially repetitive questions, which is a big issue for data quality. It's something we need to be really careful of, making sure that we're kind of guarding for, and making sure that we're not leaving ourselves open to skewing data and boring participants and boring people that are answering questions. So it's important that AI has really, really clear guidance on what it needs to cover, what it should absolutely avoid, and how broad we want the conversation to go. When we asked people about the perceived humanness of Maya, we found this really interesting. So some people felt that she was very robotic, she felt that she lacked humour, she didn't have emotion, and something about the language wasn't quite right. And that was particularly the case for older people who said that it was a bit of an issue, the language was quite stilted. Then at the other end of the spectrum, some people said that she was quite human-like, it was convincingly human. We had one lady who mentioned that she had lost her husband recently, and Maya had responded in what she felt was an empathetic way. So we found that quite interesting, that she actually thought she was speaking to a human. She didn't think she was speaking to AI. So she was really surprised at the end when we told her that she was speaking to AI. Most people, though, said that Maya was between robotic and neutral, so she was kind of somewhere in between, which is kind of exactly what we'd expect. So yes, she can sound human, she can say stuff and have a little joke and make it sound like she likes biscuits and crisps, whatever it is. But she does still struggle with tone and empathy. We found that really, really important to pull out. And I think this quote from one person, an older lady, I think really summarised some of the feeling, which is, I'm surprised at how natural it seemed. The responses to my answers were like having a conversation with a person, great. But then she goes on to say, AI scares me a little, so I have mixed feelings about talking to AI. So I think that's really, really important as we are starting to bring in AI interviewing and AI solutions, speaking to older people in particular, may be a bit of an issue and may feel uncomfortable for some. So the big question, we asked people would they use an AI conversation next time over a traditional survey. And we found that 77% of people said yes, they absolutely would. So obviously not everyone, but we can see that it's gaining traction. We can see that people are buying into it. And as the conversation went on and people are seeing more kind of real life applications of AI in normal kind of settings, they're becoming more positive. As summarised by this quote from somebody right at the end, and he said, it's made me see a different side to AI, and it surprised me a lot. And that was kind of the summary from many, many people at the end. So just to kind of wrap up on a few points, I think it's important to look at the analysis and the output from a traditional survey versus a conversational chat in this way. So obviously in the Maya route and in that kind of conversational survey, the output was open text. It was all open text and I didn't have any numbers to go on, which was a problem for me. In the kind of quant survey, in that more traditional route, we obviously had closed questions, so we had tables, and that was kind of nice to see some numbers and some data. But we also got some open text from the kind of closed questions. So when we kind of look at them side by side, exactly as Andrew said earlier, AI really struggles with quant. It was a real issue getting kind of a quantification of, yes, lots of people said walkers, but how many people said walkers? I want to know an actual number. So I had to go through and I had to count the numbers for myself because I didn't quite trust what it was telling me. I thought you were going to say something. And I should say that I did ask AI what the numbers were, and it was kind of fine, but I didn't absolutely trust it with great certainty. But of course, AI was great at summarising lots and lots of text that we got, so that worked really well. I think a lot of this stuff and a lot of the things we're talking about are obviously going to evolve. Lots of stuff in the AI space is absolutely changing. But for now, AI moderation feels safer when it's kind of paired with a quant survey. So you get that robustness. Excuse me. You get the robustness, but you also then get that richness and you get that depth from the conversation. So what did we really learn? Well, we saw the same story. From both groups, we saw the exact same story, but what did differ was how people were telling their story. We saw much kind of richer, more natural AI conversations, particularly with younger groups who found it really comfortable and really normal to go through those conversations. But comfort and perceived humanness and that perceived empathy was really, really different across different demographics, and that's a really, really important point to remember. If we think about that lady, though, who had lost her husband and said that she felt empathy from AI, I think that's an interesting point that, you know, a lady that has obviously gone through quite a hard time has felt that empathy from that person, from AI, not a person. She's not a person. That fourth point we think is really, really, really important. Human eye oversight now and will continue to remain essential in something like this. We absolutely can't just, you know, let Maya go off and do whatever she wants to do. We think it's really important. I, as a researcher, had to go through and I had to read every single response because I wouldn't have been able to do the analysis without it. That might not be everyone's kind of way of doing it. People might be fine relying on AI summaries. Personally, I wasn't. And finally, this is just the beginning. It's absolutely the beginning. There's a lot coming. Lots of stuff is going to change. AI is going to continue to improve. Conversational AI in particular is going to improve as well. So going back to our poll, we don't actually think AI moderation is in any way going to replace surveys in the short term. That may change. Ask me again in a year, it might be totally different. But it will evolve them. If we use them together, I think they'll be really powerful insight tools. Oh, that was a lot there. Sorry, that was really boring.
So that's all well and good, but there is a sobering thought, which is if you kind of look at the general population, 39% of people are positive about AI in general. Now that's not necessarily in the context of what we're talking about, but it's kind of across the board. And you know, this quote here: "Please don't replace people's jobs." We don't think we need an AI chatbot. I think that those kind of sentiments are pretty much endemic in the general population and understandable. I think at Strat7, the stuff we build tools and we partner, but we're very much towing that human for the bingo cards, human in the loop. We're very much making sure that we do that. A lot of what we do has that human moderation in it for now. I'm in a slightly different camp from the researchers behind me, but you know, we are where we are with it. I think, you know, as we move forward, these things will change, absolutely. And the speed of change is accelerating massively. So, you know, maybe if we come back in here, we'll have another conversation about what actually we have achieved and where we are. I think that's really interesting. So, next slide. But there will be impacts on market research. You know, what's going to happen with researchers themselves. Had a conversation this morning over coffee about this very subject. You know, the senior researchers in our organisation have trained over years and years and years. All of a sudden, there's a whole new bunch of skills that they need to understand and they need to get grips with. And how do they do that? How do they do that safely? How do they do that and feel empowered that they're still making decisions about market research? How do we deliver the right things to our customers? You know, make sure that the research output we're putting out is actually valid and is useful. How do we do that? And there's a whole bunch of stuff up here. There's much more, and there's mechanisms and models how we do this. So the whole thing needs some real work as we move forward because the landscape is going to change. You know, it is going to change the way this industry is. I think what is important, though, fundamentally, if you think about, you know, curiosity, empathy, and interpretation skills, they're with people at the moment. They sit in human minds. The models will change. I don't know how much they're going to change. They will change and will get better. But at the moment, we still keep people in the loop. So, some practical guidance, I guess. I mean, specifically from a techie, but led by Maria, obviously. I think really it's pick a use case for now. you know. It's great for exploratory, early stage discovery, pop-ups, doing stuff really quickly I think is great. I've got some kind of further uses for it further down the line in terms of feeding my personas and my simulated personas. But yeah, absolutely, you've got to be really careful about that. But again, watch out for things like rigor and bias control, ethics and safety, you know, and that integrity experience. The models that we use to drive Maya, we've had to turn the temperature right down because it started to get really leery and came really weird answers. So I think there's asked really weird questions. So, you know, you really, really have to think about that as well. And for us, we're learning, right? It's the beginning. And this thing is only improving all the time. And in fact, you know, there will be improvements along. And as I said before, it'll be really interesting to see where we are in a year's time.
There will be improvements, as you can see from this slide, which we've nicely prepared. Oh, hang on, I do still need this. So based on everything we learned, as I said, there were loads of findings that came out, and lots of stuff that was really interesting. Some stuff was surprising, some stuff was a bit disappointing. So me and the developers, we've sat and we've looked at everything that's come out, and they're very involved in the work that we're doing, obviously because they're building it, but in terms of what it means for research, what it means for how we go forward with this stuff and how we launch it. And I should say we've literally launched it today, so a press release has just gone out. So it's very live and very new. We think it's important that questioning, she can't be asking leading questions. That's a fundamental kind of no-no. So we're looking at reducing any of that stuff, making sure that she's asking the right questions, and we are getting that robustness and that research rigor that we know is really important. Adding in safety and quality checks, again, really important, making sure that we're alerted, thinking of things like healthcare. If we need adverse events, we need to know straight away if something goes wrong. So making sure we have those alerts in place so that I can kind of deal with anything else can my team. Quant capability, so that's something we are looking at this very minute. The team are probably working on it now, they probably solved it. But just adding in some way of giving Maya a brand list and saying, as people are responding, count it, and trying to find a solution that means we can get quant from it. Again, we don't know what that looks like, and it will get better over time, but we are trying to think about what we can do. We saw a bit of a demographic skew, obviously, when we were going through the responses. So we think it's important that we get some kind of tailored questioning. So a younger person that is fine with emojis, they get emojis and they get things that are quite casual and quite kind of light-hearted. Whereas maybe an older person who feels like they want more proper English, they will get proper English and they'll get it in the way that feels comfortable for them, so she will mirror how people are responding to her. And enhanced data visibility, this is one of my big points, which is, Andrew and I didn't agree on this, but I said, I want to read every single response, as I said already. And Andrew went, no, you can have AI summaries, it's fine. But for me, I want to read every response. So while we were going through this pilot, we added that as a feature, and you can now see every response, but we can go so much further in terms of getting the themes, clicking through from quotes, making sure that we've always got that ability to delve into data, and again, focus on that human in the loop. I don't like saying that word again, but here we are. It's on the card, there you go. So if anyone wants to have a go of Maya, you can absolutely do that. So here's a QR code. GDPR head in me says, if you do scan the QR code, we obviously have to capture your telephone number purely for sending questions. We're not going to send you any marketing or anything off the back of it. Our privacy policy and terms are here if you want to have a read of them. But yeah, as I say, it's just for sending questions.
Please have a go.
Please have a go. And that's everything from us. Anybody got any questions?
Question at the back.
Hiya, Rob from Field Locker. Just one really simple question. Why? Why AI moderation over human moderation? What research problem is that solving?
It's a good question. It started deep, I like it. I think there are many issues, and I have to be really clear within our team and within the researchers in the organisation. We're not saying we're going to deploy this to replace anyone that would write otherwise a WhatsApp survey or a traditional survey. I had this conversation just yesterday. But But we've had clients who say, I want to launch something literally tomorrow, and I can do that. I can launch it like in an hour, not even that. So there's a big speed element. It's a big speed element, and we're seeing that a lot from clients. They want to be doing cool stuff with AI. They want to be doing it fast. They want to do it cheaply. So that is a big, big thing. And it works. It works. It gets us the answers we need. But I do always say, supplement it with something else. Don't rely purely on this, because we still want to keep that human in the loop, the thing that we are advocating for.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it was a loaded question, because I'm not against AI at all. I think it's here and there's loads to be able to do with it. I think everyone's obsessed with the cost and speed of things rather than the ultimate research problem, which is, will this research help the client sell more products or services? And we've lost entire sight of that in the industry. We're obsessed with the speed and the cost of something, not will it help them sell more products and services.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Hi, Tom from Chrysalis Research. Thanks for that. That was really interesting. You kind of compared a qual process with a quant process, haven't you, in doing that? I just wondered if you had any thoughts about how, if Alex had been doing what Maya was doing, obviously there's a time issue, but if he'd been able to do that, how would that have turned out, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And obviously we did that for comparability, to talk about, you know, that contrast and that kind of tension that we're speaking about. I think Alex could do that. I think it would mean he's up at, 6 a.m. texting people that are kind of wanting to have a conversation with him. I think we know it would work. I imagine, and honestly, people that have used this have said, it's asking questions that I wouldn't have thought of. And we've had AI probing in WhatsApp for a long time. And we did a big project with a client. I won't name them, but it's a kind of fast food client. And some of the questions coming out from Maya before it was kind of full AI moderation were better than I would have come out with. And the researchers said the same thing. So because we're so careful with the briefing, and it always comes down to the briefing, it's always so important that she has the full context of what we're trying to find out, what are the objectives of the study, and this is all stuff that we bake into the kind of setup. She kind of knows what she needs to ask in the same way that Alex would have had that same brief, and he would know exactly what to ask. Sometimes people are bad with the briefing, and then we can't rely on it so much. So I think, it does always come down to a really solid briefing. As it would for a human. You wouldn't expect somebody to run qual research without a good briefing either, would you? So, yeah.
Hello. Chris from Royal Holloway. I'm up next. But I was going to ask about a little bit along the lines of the Turing test, but were people in your study informed that they were talking to an AI, or did they figure it out? But also, how does the bias in data, because I'm quite new to the surveying side, how does the bias in data affect when people think they're talking to a human? For instance, adding like a delay to the responses so they don't immediately appear like it's answering instantly. Like if you make it appear more human, do you get more, or less AI biased responses, I guess?
It's a really good question. So we told people that they would go into one of two groups. One would be an AI group and one would be a human group. We didn't tell them at that point that they would be speaking to AI or not. And we didn't put any delay in. The responses came in the same kind of cadence for both of them. So we tried to make it normal, the same, and again, comparable. Some of the feedback that came back from people when they said, I think I was in the AI group, was responses were really quick. It's definitely AI. And I was like, well, we can't control for everything, but we tried to control it as much as we could. That emotion that we looked at was all before the reveal, before they knew kind of what it was. It changed a little bit, and people were quite surprised about what they were, kind of, if they were in the AI group, they were surprised about being in the AI group. But for the most part, people kind of knew, again, particularly the kind of middle groups, up to like 55 or so, they were pretty confident if they were speaking to AI, they kind of knew it and they felt fine with it. Does that answer your question?
You mentioned the benefits of this solution being primarily cost and speed. Do you have an idea of the cost benefit for your clients at this point, or is it still in the early stages of development?
I think we're having some really interesting conversations with people. I obviously won't name any of them, but I think the idea of having something that kind of adapts and learns, and we've had one client say, but can we have it as our own collection that answers, that kind of trains Maya just for our data, all of our data coming back, and they want to roll something out potentially globally, not globally, I got ahead of myself there, in kind of within the UK, they want to roll it out to lots of different, I won't say stores, lots of different places. And the idea is it learns from what people are inputting into it, and then it asks relevant questions. So I think that's a really, really important benefit for people. In terms of the cost benefit, I think we know it's very cost effective. We're still developing kind of what it looks like commercially. We are, like I say, we just launched it today, so we're kind of still in those early phases, but I think the real value is in it being able to adapt questions, being able to respond in the right context with the right kind of knowledge of what somebody's told it. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Hi, just building on a question from earlier, how did the practicalities of the researcher handling 44 human conversations work? Because obviously Maya can handle 44 conversations simultaneously, and I just wondered how that process worked.
You mean in the human survey group?
Yeah.
So it was the exact same process. So what we did, we've got a WhatsApp integration kind of already, and we use that for either qual or quant. So it kind of works in sort of the same way. So questions were pinged to people, they responded, that's automatically tabulated within our platform. So again, that kind of works already. It's what we've been using for years now. So that technically wasn't really the issue. Does that make sense?
I was meaning, how does a researcher actually handle 44 conversations simultaneously? Is that actually possible? I mean, because obviously the real benefits of a model is that they can reply asynchronously. Mm-hmm. You know, so whereas that's hard. I mean, I've moderated online communities myself, and it's really difficult to do that, to handle that number of conversations.
Yeah, so you mean coming out of the tech and doing it on a phone, kind of old school? Is that what you mean? Yeah, I mean that's it. It's not scalable, and I think that is another big thing about it. It's that it becomes very scalable. One of the big things that we did find though is we spoke to 100 people and we split them in half, but I think we'd need to speak to a lot more people. Again, going back to the point that Maya was focusing on biscuits over kind of everything else and all the other occasions, you'd kind of want to speak to more people to ensure that you're getting the full breadth and that depth as well. So we'd likely see people speaking to more people in these kind of conversational surveys. Does that make sense?
Final question, please.
Are there any topics you wouldn't use an AI moderator for?
100%. Nothing sensitive, nothing emotional. We'd put in some guardrails for this one about eating disorders in case anyone had any sensitivities. We gave her some clear, do not, if somebody mentions being uncomfortable, opt out, let them opt out and kind of thank them, So anything sensitive, emotional, anything, I mean, it's the same with any kind of research. You just have to be mindful of the fact that we're all humans at the end of the day. People don't want to talk about sanitary products, for example, maybe with Maya. So there are many topics, and I think that's why we did snacking, because it's comfortable. Because I talk about snacking all day long. So I think just making sure it's kind of more mainstream topics rather than anything too niche, uncomfortable potentially, or emotional. Basically, it's all safeguarding. It's all about safeguarding.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.